All right, I figured I would live string a racket. I had some time today. I may have to step out if I have a customer, and I was just going to string a racket and talk a little bit about how I started a tennis stringing business. Basically, how I went from just doing it as a hobby. I actually did some coaching, and how I basically a career out of it. I do this full time along with some coaching and also string rackets for a local club. So that's how I make my living, and that's what I've been teaching people. Of the living is teaching people how to start their own at-home tennis training business and building income. It's something I really enjoy. I have a good time doing it, and yeah, there's it's a sport that is a lot of fun. I get to talk about it every day, and I've been helping other people start their own at-home tennis training business, and it's been a lot of fun. So. Right now, this is a customer who's picking up a racket in the next hour or so. This is a Babolat Pure Drive. I have some Hyper G17 we're going to use here. And I'll talk you through how I string. This is how I teach it in the tennis stringing course. But some people use their body to measure string. I actually use the racket. This is a 16 by 19 racket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And almost 9 lengths should be about 20 feet of string, maybe a little bit more. If you have a pack of string, it comes in 40 feet. Um, Rather than cut it 20 and 20 for a 16 by 19, I'd cut a little bit more for your mains. I measured almost 9 lengths for our mains. There's a few ways to do it. You can use your body. You can um, use count 16 individual mains and then add a length for the tensioning knob. But I've found I get a little bit more exact measurement when I count the entire racket or use the racket as a guide. So I string at 52 pounds, do slower pull speed. I have it mounted nice and well. These are not on too tight. Pull 2 here to get started. I like to pull 2 just to set my original clamps. I'm using a head TE machine, TE 3600. That's 17 gauge. Always recommend backing up your first tension pull with a starting clamp. And if you have a comment, if I don't respond right away, I'll do my best to respond later. I'm uh, just because I have a customer who may show up, so I'm just going to kind of go through and talk through a little bit. But I can definitely answer any questions if you have any. But so 52 pounds, what we're stringing at. So this strings out 52. Want the clamp to be nice and firm, not too tight. We're going to string 3 on this side. And the fundamentals of tennis stringing are all the same, but everyone has kind of their own style. And you'll see weave speed. I have sort of my own style. And as long as you do it, the fundamentals are right, um, everything should be perfect. Let's see if I need to loosen that up just a hair. But yeah, so basically my own journey, I played, not in college, but I did play competitively. And then I got into coaching actually. So I ended up getting the PTR coaching certification. And obviously, when coaching comes up, you'll have people who ask for tennis stringing. And that's basically my own stringing journey, how I basically learned. I started with the drop weight stringing machine, and I did 3, and I'm going to do another. I'm going to start the other side here. I started with the drop weight machine. Some of you may be familiar. It uses just a simple weight and gravity to get the correct tension, but it's usually not the most exact, and it's floating clamps. These are base clamps, so it takes longer. um, but that's how I learned, and that's actually a good way to learn if you're just sort of wanting to kind of see how tennis stringing goes. Um, so it's a good way to learn. Now, when you release the clamp here, I've seen both ways. At the end, when I do the knots, I'm going to release the base clamp first and then the top clamp. But on the way, we can release the top clamp first. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of a fun thing. But I learned to on a drop weight floating clamp, and then eventually started stringing for other people. Um, so I eventually got in addition to coaching, got the USRSA Master Racket Technician, which, like everything, you learn the most just by doing. Um, anyone who's joined, uh, anyone who's joined, I'll answer later. If I don't answer to you now, hey, no, not hiring just now, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Ah, yeah, that's right. So then I eventually got a Gamma electronic stringing machine, and I actually found that rather than stringing, or rather than coaching, I actually had more fun talking gear and stringing. So I did it out of my apartment where I would collect rackets on the court, and from there, uh, collect rackets on the court, and from there bring it back home and string. So it became a supplemental income, a side business, just something I enjoyed. And that's basically how I started it. It was just something on the side that I actually really enjoyed. And then I started carrying a little bit more strings in inventory. I eventually upgraded the tennis stringing machine, and eventually it got to a point where I was doing enough rackets where I could actually get a commercial office space. In my course, I do not teach doing that because you take the tennis stringing business blueprint. We want to keep the overhead as low as possible, and it's pretty difficult to be able to afford a commercial space unless you want to go full retail, become a retail space. But in this case, I had enough where I could. So I basically took my tennis stringing, and now I do stringing plus some coaching. And like I said, I string for a club, and that's basically been my journey. And I've learned pretty much every good and bad lesson on the way as far as how to properly do taxes, when to form an LLC if you want to go from a sole proprietor to an LLC. So yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. Been getting into racket painting a little bit. I don't know if you watch any of the older videos, but Unstrung Customs is who I took the course from. So I've been offering that to some customers. So if you're looking to string, a good way to differentiate yourself is by offering that. I just replaced a bumper guard on a racket here. Over grips. It's a good way to help build your business for sure. Making sure I'm clamping close to the grommet. And yeah, today I have a few rackets that I'm doing just standard turnaround. And so these are people that dropped off a few days ago. This particular one is for someone who is paying for expedite. They would like to pick it up a few hours after drop off. And usually it's a habit if you string to keep your finger on the outside of the bumpers and grommets. If it's been strung several times, it's usually flared where it won't pop out, but it's just a good habit because sometimes, especially on this last pull, it will pop out. So we're doing our final knot tension. These are our outside where there'll be the knots. So we're going to increase our tension 10%. Lay my finger on here. Now I'm going to increase this one 10%. And good. It's about the perfect length that I want, where I'm not risking anything, but I'm also not wasting any string because this is my own string. All right, so I pulled the knot tension on this, and now I can do my tie-off knots. I'm going to use Parnell. The thing about the pure drive, it makes it pretty board, especially on a full bit of poly, to find your tie off grommets, and it's pretty close. I'm going to rock back and forth with the Parnell, making sure I'm not giving up any tension. And again, if I have someone show up, I may need to stop the live stream early, but welcome anyone who's joined us. Trying to clip the knot tail pretty close. And cool thing about a nice machine like this, it has a brake. I can just press the button and now it's locked in place, makes it tying off much, much easier. Parnell knot. Yeah, and when you do the last knot, I always do the base clamp first and then the top clamp on my last one, just so, because when you release the knot, it's going to want to pull right away, and that you don't want to damage the string. So now I'm going to clip. Knot. Perfect. So now we're ready for our cross strings. Using my own reel. If you're watching the beginning with the main, I did almost 9 lengths. Cross, we won't need quite as much, and since it's from a reel, I can count it out. So I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and not quite the same length as we did. Now I always recommend starting 3 crosses down. That way you're not dragging 20 feet of string, or around 20 feet of string all the way down. But yeah, basically a day in the life of a tennis stringer. Basically, I have rackets to string. I have some coaching, and have to update a few things on the tennis stringing blueprint today, which is helping at-home stringers build their business so they can make money stringing from home. That's basically on the agenda today. I have a few more rackets to do, and again, I started 3 down. I'm gonna go to the next one. That way, the most important thing is to make sure you're doing a good job. Um, if you do string rackets, you know it's a repeat business. Never want to pull the string across. But yeah, if you're looking to start your own at-home stringing, or just love gear, or want to string your own, it's really good to look for. If you don't want to get electronic constant pull, I would get a crank lockout machine. And that way you're stringing at a high quality. Ideally, electronic constant pull is the best if you're going to do it professionally. But as you're learning a crank lockout, as long as you clamp it as soon as it pulls tension, I think the dynamic tension on that would be just fine. I wouldn't string professionally with a drop weight. All right. I have a Parnell pad here named after the knot, the starting clamp. It's going to back it up. I'm going to pull the first knot, or first cross. I'm going to go a little tighter there. And then, as far as marketing the business, basically I made sure I was visible on Google, visible on Facebook. But Google's the most important, because most people are going to find you just simple Google searches. And then you can start carrying inventory, making sure you have the right, take the money you're making and make sure you have the right inventory for your customers. All right, I'm going to do the pull method on this one. And if you're, for me at least, the big thing when I first started out stringing was I strung from my apartment. So the question is where to meet people in order to to get rackets and collect rackets. So it basically became a place near my apartment. I would be able to go collect rackets because usually it's not you're not going to be zoned for um, for someone to come into your house. Also, do you really want someone coming to your house? But usually not going to be zoned for that. So you need to find a place pretty close by to collect rackets and drop off rackets. Also, most places you're not allowed to have a retail business out of your residence. People don't want to live next door to, unless it's zoned for it, to someone who has customers showing up. um, so yeah, that was the big reason. That was the big impetus for me to actually get a commercial office space. I did the finances, and I think I could make it work as long as I had coaching and some other things. In the tennis world, I started training squash, started training racquetball, which definitely helped out. Um, so yeah, that was definitely a big part of it. But yeah, once I had the commercial space, and even if you're a stringer at home, if you can find a place outside of the house that you can list as a business address, that would be a huge, huge win. Obviously, if unless you have someone there all the time, you need to make sure people know it's either by appointment or not where you actually string, or if you can string from a place. It's just the problem is the margins are pretty tough. Um, this where I'm at, the commercial office space is a bit expensive. So if you make say $25 for labor racket, you'd have to string a lot of rackets to pay for it unless you had something you could scale. And I had a tennis ball machine rental, which was really cool. I have a slinger bag. This is another part of it. So yeah, tennis stringing. I do a lot of customizing here. I'd recommend if you're wanting to learn or to know how to customize um, rackets, add lead tape. You can add silicone into the handle. I've had to learn it all. I've learned it all the hard way, to be honest with you. But you can add silicone to the handle. I don't do that as much anymore. It's usually just hiding lead tape under it, but certainly some I certainly offer. And then you can add a lot of fun stuff. Like I added, people want to increase their grip size, a heat shrink sleeve. Obviously, that adds a lot of weight, but some people are fine with it. Making sure I'm keeping these strings nice and straight. The heat shrink sleeve is a great way to build it up, or you can use some other stuff. The cool thing is they have changeable pallets. So I'll have people sometimes ship me rackets to change the pallets on, and you can charge a good fee for that because it's actually a pretty skilled thing because it involves removing staples, adding a new butt cap, restapling new pallets. But it's really cool if someone gives you a head racket that's, I don't know, a grip size 2, 1 and 1/4, and you can make it grip size 3 just by simply changing out the pallets, or vice versa. You could have a 5/8 racket that you could make a 1/4 grip. So that's a real cool thing Head offers. I wish other brands did. And grip sanding is something I do too, where like this Babolat racket I'm stringing right here will have a foam handle. And if someone wants to reduce the grip size, I can reduce it one grip size. I remove the butt cap, sand down the pallet, and restaple the smaller grip size. I only do that one grip size because if you go to any more, you're going to round out those bevels. Keeping this nice and straight as we go along. And this machine, I started with the drop weight, gamma drop weight. Then once I started stringing for people, then did the gamma, I think X stringer or X2, a good machine, and then went to this head machine. Thank you. Yes. I read that comment. I'd agree, Andrew. But yeah, so that's basically my journey. This business happened honestly completely by accident. It was never a game plan. It's just something I enjoyed doing. And then I basically fell into it, but I do enjoy it. And I enjoy teaching it as well, and teaching people who are wanting to start their own stringing business. So I bring it all together, and that's been my journey for the last almost 10 years here. But yeah, like most people, just started because I enjoyed playing the sport. And when you enjoy playing a sport, you usually want to learn more. So stringing for myself, then stringing for people, then charging a fee for it, finding more people. 90% of the people I get now are recurring, if not more. And then with my business, certain 20% of the customers are giving 80% of the revenue, no question about it. The top people I string for my top clients is usually parents of junior players. They rather than string rackets, they spend their time on the court. Usually they're coaches, and that way they can just drop off rackets to me. I've considered adding a delivery service, but right now I just use Uber Courier. If it's in the area, it's not too expensive. Just Uber Courier can actually deliver the rackets to the customer, which is cool. Keeping the string straight. As far as business formation goes, at least my journey, you start making money stringing rackets for people. You're going to be a sole proprietor. And again, this isn't tax advice or legal advice, but you're going to be a sole proprietor, which just means you start making money, you're considered a sole proprietor. And you just need to make sure you track that income, report on your taxes, and then you have to decide if it's worth it to be an LLC. You get the liability protection. It costs a little bit more to be a LLC. Hello. But you have to decide that, and then it becomes different taxes, and then you can go from there. And then you can get off into the weeds of like if you want to do sales tax, to get a sales tax and make sure you're paying all your right taxes. But if you can get a Texas resale certificate and stuff like that, but make sure you're keeping track of everything for taxes. And yeah, I talk a lot about that in the business blueprint because I had to learn a lot of stuff the hard way. But yeah, it's cool. If you're a coach, you can do stringing, and if you string, you can do some coaching because they certainly can go together. And if you want to learn more, or if you have any questions, check us out at proshopacademy.com, where I help people who are basically me a few years ago who want to start their own at-home stringing business, want to learn the proper stringing foundation, want to learn everything about gear. It's all in there. Basically, best way to get noticed, best way to build customers, or get customers, build a foundation. And if you haven't strung for, it may be a good one to check out because we've started at the beginning of making sure you're stringing the top level or the best foundation. I'm still learning things stringing, even all these years, and there's certainly people who are a lot better than me that do it that I learned from. But I think that it gives you a good foundation though of what knots to tie, proper methods, and etc. Trying to think some of the biggest mistakes I've made running my stringing business. One of the silliest ones was there's a some of you may know there's a string hybrid called Prince Pro Blend. It has one piece is Kevlar, one is synthetic gut. And for those who may not know, Kevlar is basically like spaghetti. But it has to be the main, basically. The short answer is it almost has to be the main. The reason is if it's the cross, the idea of pushing Kevlar through anything tight is going to be impossible because there's just it has zero firmness to it. It's totally totally like a spaghetti a noodle. It has no form. Um, it's just and basically when I first started, I was like, oh, someone had the pack, and I was like, oh, I can do the synthetic gut as the main, and it was a mess. So yeah, you really can't do Kevlar. Not that anyone really uses Kevlar anymore, but you really can't do it as a cross, as I've learned. But yeah, I've learned everything the hard way. So yeah, you're learning or starting your own stringing. don't feel bad. Keeping everything in order. Perfect. We teach it in the course, but our last cross here, we're going to do a different technique because if you just pull it straight across, it will be like it'll get that razor wire look or barbed wire look because you're dragging it through a tight space, and this, especially this shape string, will sort of damage the string and give it a kind of an ugly look. So you want to pull it all the way through before doing anything. And this takes practice, but once you do it for a bit, it's not too hard. So I've already pulled out all the string, and I can just push down and pull up. Yeah, I would definitely notice it if I was a customer and someone gave me a racket and the shape string like this and the bottom string looked different than the other ones. I would notice that, and it would affect the string bed. Clip that in to make it a little bit easier to push through. A thin gauge polyester like this makes it easier to push through the grommets. The polyester is firmer, and 17 is a bit thinner. Setting my knot tension by 10%, increasing the tension by 10%. Try to clamp as close to that grommet as I can, yet still leaving room for that Parnell knot. Setting the brake. Yeah, and at least my stringing, not a lot of people ask for stencils. Sometimes they do, but I'm happy to do it. But yeah, on the agenda now after this, I have a few more rackets to string. It should be straightforward. I'm gonna push it, pull. Take as much of that, because no matter what, when you when I release the base clamp first, it will lose some tension. That's why we increased it. Just make sure that tail is snug up against the frame. Good thing with Parnells, they usually don't come loose. You can clip the tail pretty close, especially on polyesters. It's probably not going to come loose. And now we still have this top one that we started with. I'm setting the knot tension. And that way, when we string this way, we have 2-piece string and it's 4 Parnell knots, so it looks pretty clean. Set the brake here. Another Parnell knot. Clip in the tail. This customer who paid for the expedite, I think we did a great job for them. I think this is going to play well, a pure drive with the Hyper G. Looks like since we did a good job, right, I think so, of making sure the crosses we straightened out as we went. I think I shouldn't have to do too much, which is good because we don't want to affect the dynamic tension. But it's basically my journey stringing, or how I kind of accidentally fell into this business. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, proshopacademy.com. And if you're looking to start your own dentistry business or have any questions, feel free to reach out, and hope to talk soon.